Dilipkumar Mohanta to read his paper.
Respected Chairman, distinguished delegates, friends, mine is a very simple deliberation. The title, Buddhism and the Principle of Good Governance. Actually, it's a long paper, so I'm skipping over most of the papers. Only I shall explain one of the narratives from canonical literature. What we see around us today, we see political activities without any moral principle. We see wealth without work, and commerce without least connection to ethics. And as a result, we find corrupt individuals, corrupt administration, and as a whole, a corrupt society. Moral degradation destroys a nation. So, what is relevant in Buddha's dialogue? We can have some clues to address our present day problem, and I concentrate mainly on one of such dialogue, Chakravarti Singhanada Shuttanta, in English, the lion's roar of a universal monarch. So the first part actually dealt with details analysis of Buddha's moral philosophy. At the same time, I tried to show that in the light of this moral philosophy, today we can reshape the categorical understanding of I-other relationship from Sa to Sabba. In the morning session, our learned scholars have discussed this holistic approach and the principle in interdependence. This is very important. It teaches democratic values of people's right to diversity of culture and encourages self-criticism, self-restraint through the practice of precepts, and increases one's range of choice. Well, you know in Shila Shiksha, so I'm skipping over this and directly coming to the narrative itself. In the narrative, there are 32 small paragraphs contained in the teachings in Pali language. In this dialogue, the king is advised to institute righteous means of security, protection, and guard for the people, to take all measures to improve their economic condition. In other words, it speaks of a socio-political atmosphere. When the king does not create opportunities, poverty, daridra, becomes rampant. Ordinarily, it is thought that the power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Primarily, according to Buddha's teaching, it is poverty that corrupts lay people. Those who do not have the basic necessities of life resorted to stealing. To avoid punishment, they are compelled to commit other evils such as lying, etc. This is very important from even psychological point of view. Now, since my profession is philosophy, as Buddha has given us the right, pariksha madhavacha grajyam bhikshave natu gogrovat. Just out of sheer reverence to me, don't accept what I say, but examine it. Because the objectors are the mirrors in truth seeking. We debate which is called not Rajavada, but Panditavada, where both, if you criticize me, I can learn more from you, and we become more close friends. Our intimacy becomes more. So I am raising an objection to this. Since Buddhism contributed to the doctrine of karma, it follows logically to attribute poverty to lack of initiative or entrepreneurship on the part of the person. It is the karma phala. So government is not responsible for your suffering, the result of action of that person. But this initial passage in the discourse fixes the blame not on the individual. There are, in English writing especially, there are such interpretations according to some scholars, but I beg to differ. But on the society, maldistribution of wealth by the ruler is considered to be one of the causes of evils in society, and this is because of the wrong understanding of the fact due to delusion, moha, that something in this world can exist independently. Nothing, according to Buddhism, is substantial in this world. Everything is dependently originated and therefore non-substantial, and logically everything is impermanent. Due to ignorance, we think something as independently existent and permanent. We develop a sense of attachment because of the lack of prajna, lack of awareness of the non-substantial nature of things. This is also because of greed associated with delusion and hatred as psychological causal grounds that supply all incentives to action for violence. This discourse, Chakravarti Singhanada Suttanto, thus narrates the ways and means contributing toward a harmonious social life. It goes like this. There is a story, I am narrating it in short. A man was caught red-handed by the king's guard for stealing something, and he was brought to the king. Hearing from the person kept red-handed for stealing that because of lacking by basic amenities of life, he has been compelled for stealing. The king orders to provide him with the basic opportunity to acquire some wealth. But the other, who heard about it, resorted to stealing with the hope of gaining the favor from the king. At last, the situation was out of control. Then the king had to mete out with severe punishment for stealing and other crimes. So the equal distribution of wealth alone, though serve as a necessary condition, but by no means can serve as a sufficient condition for solution of socio-economic problems. It has to go hand in hand with moral progress. Therefore, moral philosophy is very important here. Again, good governance does not only mean economics, but also principled politics. According to the teaching of Buddha, the authority to rule is not parental or family heritage. Rather, it has to be earned. This has been instructed by old king to his son in the narrative of life of a universal monarch. It is a life of righteous, whereby he would provide righteous reward and protection for all the subjects, including the army, those associated with the warriors and householders, the villagers, those living in the provinces, ascetics, brahmanas, as well as beasts of forests and the birds of the air. If the authority is to rule is not hereditary, if it is to be derived from people, then those very people cannot be sacrificed in the name of law, as we see in the Buddhist analysis of yajna, because yajna was performed at the cost of taxpayers. So Buddha was very much against this. The administration must consult experts and moral figures of the civil society in policy making. True spirit of good governance cannot permit any law in order to serve the rulers and deceive the ruled. The administrative policies and their implementations are to be based on a middle path between extreme severity and the total laxity or political populism when adopting punitive measures. Good governance is the rule without harsh punishment, with red-hot iron stick. The relationship between the ruler and the ruled is comparable to one between the parent and the child, where the parent acts with great compassion. In this context, The chief aim of punishment is correction and not revenge. The government should take decision in a meeting called meetings, he suggested with the ministers. Now, the relevance. The teaching of Buddha can have a great relevance in setting some problems we face even in our modern polity. It seems to be precursor of democratic values we need today. The socio-political philosophy is based on an attitude of belongingness instead of possessiveness, service instead of ruling, duties instead of rights. In case of development, it would speak of sustainability and totality. It would help to reshape the categorical understanding, as I referred earlier, of I and other relationship, not as mutually exclusive, but as complementary to each other. It teaches democratic values of people's rights to diversity of culture and encourages self-criticism, self-restraint through the practice of precepts and increases one's range of choice. When Buddha speaks of the law of interdependent existence, he in fact speaks of multidimensional and pluralistic, non-exclusive identity. Because exclusively one-dimensional identity necessarily leads to violence. It says, my view is the only true view. But Buddha would say, my view is only one of the different possible views. And I and other relationship is an interdependent relationship. Now, imagine an ideal situation in a parliament, the policy-making body of the state, where people vote not to involve in speaking what is untrue, not encouraging what is untrue, and not sanctioning what is untrue. Imagine the same possibility with regard to other moral precepts. In that case, we should not have any doubt that our administrative institution, no matter it is either democracy or kingship, would have been much better. Our suffering in the world would have been reduced to a considerable extent if the state of Vaishali comes again and again as an ideal polity. The king in this ideal state extends its hands for distribution of justice with a sense of modesty. It is a state where enjoyment is integrally tied up with restraint. There is a conscious chain in the mouth of the horses of greed. The Buddhist socio-political philosophy prescribes the code of conduct for a king in such a manner that it does good not only to his subjects, but it does equally good to all other people of other kingdoms. Buddha's teaching can serve as a philosophical foundation for propagating good international relation. This is the nature of Raja Dharma, ideal of good governance according to Buddha's teaching. Thank you so much for your patience.
I am no scholar of Buddhism, but a question comes to my mind. Does Buddha not believe in karma theory? And if he believes, then how can good governance change the destiny or the future of a person? Because karma theory believes in rebirth, and you are getting results from your past karmas. So, how can the karmas of others be contributive to the sukha and dukkha of a person in the present condition? This is
Thank you, Alexi. It's a very good question. In fact, in the beginning of my paper, I dealt with this in detail since I skipped over. Anyway, this karma, but the Buddhist understanding of theory of karma is somehow different from the traditional Vedantic understanding of karma. See, the basic teaching is pratitya samutpada. So whatever is happening, your own karma is not your alone. You are not doing alone. It is also interconnected. So it is not that the past life is connected with this. It is also the present life, present moment. Every moment it is changing. That the eternal karma theory, if you accept, then it is a continuity, not only continuity, but there is an identity. This is, the Buddhists do not admit this identity. You know, this similarity is confused as identity. Buddhists would react like this. So, so your karma, you are born here. Even if you read the Indian traditions, the word Bharata Varsha, it's a land ruled by Bharata. Who is a Bharata? Bharayati Prashayati, one who, you know, looks after the subject, protect the subject. He is a Bharata, he is an ideal king. So, everything is interconnected. Not that you are independent. You are present, you are compelled to do something. Just like when you don't have food, you are compelled to even stealing. There is I may refer from Mahabharata to an episode, this Vishamitra. It was a famine, he was not getting food elsewhere. Then there are some lowly person kept some meat, and Vishamitra did steal that food, and he was caught red-handed. Then he identified himself as Vishamitra. Then that person said, "You taught us many moral lectures, now you are stealing." Then he said, "It's an extraordinary situation. First you are to protect your life." So even if you see in Mahabharata also, it is not absolute. Dharma hi babastika smitaha, said Vyasa. I think with Buddhism, it has a tradition of rather preserving the right thing inherited from Hinduism. Only its interpretation is this practical interpretation, a theory which has no application, has no value to Buddhist. So in that way, it is not antagonistic to karma theory, rather they have their own interpretation of karma theory. There are charges of suppose agent of karma, akrita pranasa, akrita bhagama. If you understand that there is no agent which is changing, so your question is related to that, maybe, but you know it needs time. But Buddhists have their own way of understanding this karma, and that's why it is not something eternal or unchanging. Here we are what we are saying, we are also conditioned here. There are 15 minutes time, there are 5 minutes time for discussions. So always all our actions are conditioned. Only those who are responsible for rather maintaining the condition, it is the ruler class. So their more responsibility lies with the person who is in the higher position. That is why this approach is not antagonistic to the karma theory as interpreted in the canonical literature. That is my response. I don't know whether it has satisfied you or not. Thank you.